Hello everybody, welcome to today's Brightspace Community Webinar. Very excited to have you join us today as we learn about Google Apps and GSuite. Before we get started, I want to quickly touch on a few housekeeping items just for everybody's convenience. On the screen, you should see the slide window in the middle. Today it's got a nice orange slide. It says Google with Brightspace. You can click and move that slide window around. You can resize it to fit your screen. Please feel free to make any adjustments you want there. Please also take a look for the Q&A pod. That should appear on your screen, but if you don't see it, it is down in the icon bar at the bottom of your screen. It's the one that's called Q&A. Anything you type in there comes to me. I'll be watching that. Throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter those in there, and then we will address any questions towards the end. There is also a group chat function, and that is the little speech bubbles icon at the bottom. That is all visible to everybody, and you're welcome to communicate there as well. If anybody has any comments you'd like to share with the group, you are quite welcome to do so. And that should be fine. If you are having any audio difficulties, look for the media player, and that is the little, looks like a film strip on the icon bar, and you can adjust your Adobe Flash player in that, and that usually solves any problems people are having. We'll get to questions at the end. If you need to drop off, this presentation is being recorded, and the link you use to sign in is the same link you can use to access the recording. That recording will be available about 24 hours from now. All right, now I am very pleased to present Annika Moline from D2L. I know Annika's got a slide about herself, so I won't spoil that. Annika, take it away.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me okay. Josh, please let me know if you can't. Hi everybody, my name is Annika Moline. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer here with D2L. I've always been in technology. I've always been a gadget junkie, very enthusiastic about technology. And one of my last positions was at a K-12 district. And so I became heavily involved in everything that many IT people wear, many hats, right? So I really got very good at going into classrooms and observing what are teachers already using, what kinds of tools do they need, where are they struggling, that sort of thing. And so it's become sort of a passion of mine to really help people that maybe have technology in their fingertips but don't necessarily even know what the power is. They don't know what they don't know. And so here now at D2L, I really enjoy showing off tools and ways of using what you're already using but inside of our platform. So today we're going to have a look at Google inside of Brightspace. And first and foremost, we want to mention that we now have the full integration, which we're going to talk about in a second, but we also have the ability of using those personal Google accounts. Now the difference is, and the next slide will make this point a little bit stronger, the difference is typically a GSuite or a Google Apps. You may have heard that Google Apps for Education, GAF, has now updated their term, and they're now called GSuite. So you'll notice that some of my lingo is Google Apps versus GSuite. Same thing. The point is your district, your university, your organization may have a Google domain set for education where either all students and faculty or maybe just the teacher base, whatever, you have choices inside of that solution to roll out bits and pieces of Google Apps. Personal Google accounts are those where you just go to google.com and you sign up. You basically get like a Gmail account, you get Google Drive, you get Google Calendar, etc. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about where those are actually integrated in the platform. But I think everybody is familiar with Google's famous inline editing, right? So when you open up a Google Doc, and if you have sharing turned on, other people could actually be doing that live inline editing at the same time. You can do that right inside of the Brightspace platform, and we're going to show you a demo of that at the end of this presentation. The other thing that we're hearing a lot about is Google has this, I guess I would call it a template, where they have the ability of basically copying from, let's say, a teacher's Google Drive right into their learner's Google Drive. That way, every student gets a template of what that, let's say, assignment is or whatever that item is from the teacher's Google Drive. We're going to show an example of that as well. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about the widget that we have available. Now again, I mentioned that in order for the widget to work, you need to have the GSuite account, which again is that institution or org-wide creation of a Google Apps suite. Then you can actually use a widget inside of Brightspace. It's pretty slick. We're going to show that in a screenshot here later on. And really what that does is you can place that on any homepage, whether it be a course homepage or even one of your school or district or department homepages. And what it'll do is show any user a glimpse into their OneDrive, Calendar, and even Gmail. And of course it's configurable. So if you're not using Calendar for, let's say, students, you can turn off some of those tabs as well. And then lastly, I referenced a couple of use cases that are actually listed in our documentation. Again, I really wanted to hit home that there are two variations of our Google integration. The first being that GSuite. Again, I mentioned this is where there's been some sort of IT administrator that has signed up for a Google domain, a Google Apps account, again, GSuite, GAF, whatever you want to call it, but they have signed up and you probably have a @ and then your institution name at the end of that domain. Versus on the right-hand side there, your personal Gmail account is probably going to be something that you created with an @Gmail at the end of it. And you'll notice that I've even included a screenshot there of what that account picker looks like. So for those of us familiar with multiple Google accounts, occasionally when you want to change out and go from one account to another, you'll notice that you actually have the ability of changing which account you're using, and that's what that screenshot is there. Now, I wanted to mention the GSuite integration. There is a little bit of lifting done by your LMS administrator. And typically what they're going to do is follow our documentation. I have a link here. And then the teachers or instructors are going to be able to use the widget to see those new items. They can upload content from their Google Drive. And they can even use that inline editing as well as pass out those templates to users. Now, I do want to mention that typically you're going to see GSuite integration used in organizations that feel that they want a centralized management component. They want to say to their institution, their faculty, their instructors, hey, we want you using district resources or our organization resources. That way we know what everybody has and what everybody's using, and we're probably going to give you a little bit of training and guidance on how to use these tools properly. And then students can actually use the widget to see their new items in the Google tools, like I mentioned. So with the GSuite integration, students can use that widget to see some of those new items, as well as being able to turn in assignments from their GSuite account. I really wanted to hit home on which tools apply to which kind of integration you have. So most of you are probably familiar with our content tool. Our content tool connects with that full-fledged GSuite integration. GSuite integration is also available inside of assignments for students to turn in, and then, like I mentioned, that widget. Personal Google accounts can be used in our kind of latest iterations of some of our fun K-12 friendly items, such as activity feed and lessons. Now, neither of those has to be used in K-12. Just the first launch of these two tools has really been, I think, heavy in the K-12 segment, but I think we're starting to see some higher ed institutions interested in activity feed as well. Last thing here, just kind of highlighting, for those that aren't quite as familiar with the differences between content and lessons, content is on the left and lessons is on the right. So on the left-hand side, content, you've got the table of contents view. On the left-hand side, you can see each of your modules, you can see the number of items, etc. I would say the new simplified experience of that content, which we tag name as lessons, is on the right-hand side. So you can actually see standard adherence. You can actually see some bright, pretty color as far as those module headings and such. You can also see which items are hidden or using release conditions, and that's what the orange one and the green one at the bottom there actually have little icons on top of them. So just a couple of differences between content and lessons that I wanted to point out for the group. And with that, we're going to jump into a couple of quick demos of how you can use Google inside of these particular tools. Here I am logged in as Tammy Teacher, and I happen to be in a middle school algebra course. You'll notice the activity feed is on the left-hand side, and I have that big familiar blue button indicating here's how I would add something new to the activity feed. Now if I jump to message or assignments, I still have some familiarity here. So in the messages item, I would simply start typing. In the assignments, as you can guess, I would start titling the assignment, add some instructions, etc. Either way, at the bottom of the window that opens, I have the ability of attaching something from my Google Drive. So when I click on that, if I have not already logged into a Google item from this browser session, it would prompt me to go ahead and log in as Tammy Teacher or whatever Google account I want to use. In this case, you can see I've already logged in. So towards the bottom here, it's showing me the username that I'm logged in as, and I have the ability to change. Now, if I click change, this is where I get that familiar item of the Google account picker. Account picker is what we call it. So I would have the ability of jumping to and from different accounts that I'm already logged into on this computer. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and jump into my algebra folder. I'm going to grab that fraction study guide, select it, and it's going to plop it right in here for me to continue posting this message. Okay. That was one video. Now I want to show a second video, and this is more about the lessons component using Google. Here I am as Tammy Teacher, and I would like to bring in some items that are on my Google Drive. With Lessons, which is our new updated user experience for content, what I can do is go to the big blue button here and choose Add Material. When I get to Add Material, you'll notice we have a variety of choices. Some of you are already familiar with some of these choices from the previous content view. But here I have Google Drive and OneDrive. So I'm going to jump into Google Drive, and what it's going to do is prompt me to log in if I haven't already logged in as myself as the desired Google account on this computer in this browser session. You can see that I've already logged in, so I have Teacher's account here. If in the event that I wanted to change to another account, I could go to the Google account picker and choose a different account. I'm going to go ahead and grab something from my middle school algebra course. I'm going to grab this study guide, and boom, I'm going to bring that in. And what that's going to do is render in the background just like a PDF would, just like a Word document would, etc. You'll notice it says created successfully, and what it's doing is actually bringing that in as a PDF into the learning environment. So there's an example of bringing in an item from
and this last
Google
video
Drive.
Is going to be about incorporating that famous copy or that template handout as I described earlier.
Here I am as Tammy Teacher, and I would like to pass out a Google file out to my learners so they each have a copy in their own Google Drive. Here's how I do that. You'll notice I have a tab open here for my school page, my middle school algebra page. I'm going to go ahead and start creating an assignment post. I'm going to give it a title, Worksheet 1. I'm going to give it some instructions. And what I'm going to do is grab a URL from the Google Doc that I want to be passed out. So I'm going to grab this URL here at the top. I used a Control-C to copy that. I'm going to jump over here, and I'm actually going to insert a web link. Now you'll notice that I'm not inserting the actual Google Drive item, and the reason is I'm actually going to modify the last bit of the URL. Instead of saying copy, I need it to say copy. That copy command at the end of a Google Doc is what tells Google to push it to the user that is opening the document. So I'm going to call this Worksheet 1. I'm going to go ahead and say insert, and when I'm all finished with my post, I simply finish that post. Now you'll see that I have the instruction sets. I've got that Google Drive, that Google worksheet ready to go, and you'll even notice that as a teacher I have the options for calculating who has actually submitted their items. Now I'm going to flip over and look at it from a student's perspective. So here I am on the middle school algebra same course homepage. I'm actually going to refresh just so I grab that activity feed message post. And so from Ashley's perspective, now I see the instructions,
I see the worksheet. I'm going to go ahead and click on it because it tells me to. The instructions give me the guidance of go ahead and open this, and it's prompting me already. Now this means I'm already logged into Google in this particular browser. If I wasn't already logged in, I would go ahead and log in as my Google account, and then I can go ahead and say make a copy. And what it's going to do is take that Algebra 1 skill list, and you'll notice that it named it copy of. So now I can, rename this if I needed to say Ashley's homework assignment or whatever I needed to do. I can go ahead and do all of my editing, and now this is a part of my Google Drive. And that is how we can use the now famous Google Copy feature right inside of the Brightspace learning environment. Further, I showed you how to create an assignment using that URL. There's no magic here. You can use that copy URL, that URL with the copy at the end of it, anywhere inside the learning environment. I just happen to show you inside of a homework assignment.
Okay. And lastly, this was a short and sweet presentation, but I really wanted to hit home that you can use whatever Google items you're already using, and at the very least, you can link that from anywhere inside the platform, regardless of the integration method that you might be using. Again, using personal accounts is now an option, and your GSuite right along each other. You can have one or both of these in play.
Great. Thank you very much, Annika. I really appreciate that presentation. We haven't really had any questions come in throughout the presentation. Here's an opportunity. If anybody has a question, put that in the Q&A pod, or even in the group chat would be all right. And we'll take a look at that. And we'll give you a minute to enter any questions you might have. All right. Well, it looks like no questions here, and that's quite all right. If you are watching a recording of this presentation and you have some questions, please feel free to send an email to community@brightspace.com. You can also find that email address at the bottom of every page on Brightspace Community. Send questions over, and I'll make sure that Annika or somebody gets a look at those, and we'll certainly help you out. Annika, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I thank you for everybody's time.
All right, excellent. Wow, that went very smoothly. Thanks everybody who joined us today. And this video will be available for on-demand viewing about 24 hours from now. All right, thank you very much. Everybody have a great day.